Hello all you lovely people and welcome to another video of mine. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about an IPS panel versus a VA panel heading into 2024. That's right, we have come to almost the end of 2023, which was like a breeze. And now that we're heading into 2024, and if you're out in the market to buy a TV, and if you're confused about which panel should you go in for, then this is the right video for you. I'm going to start off by talking about what each of these technologies are and what they have to offer in terms of their contrast ratios, their viewing angles, their blacks, their color reproduction, etc., so that you can make an informed decision at the end of this video. Now, with that said, let's get started. Now, if you're new to this channel and if you have not already subscribed, then it would really mean a lot to me if you could just hit that like and subscribe button and also that bell icon in case you want to get notified with all my latest videos. It's anyways free to subscribe to the channel, so please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button and also that bell icon. Now, let's get this thing moving. Let's start by talking about what exactly is an IPS panel. Now, IPS, it stands for in plane switching. And just as the name suggests, now what you have to keep in mind is there are liquid crystals inside your television. So think of these two fingers of mine being these liquid crystals inside your television. When there's no electric charge that flows through your TV, then they remain in this position. You remember these are liquid crystals? So they remain horizontally. And when there is an electric charge which passes through them, it moves and it changes position. But what's important to note here is that it remains in the same plane. It does not go like this. It stays in the same plane. Therefore, the name in plane switching. This is when there is no electric charge passing through them. This is when electric charge is passing through them. Now, of course, to a lot of people, this is irrelevant because when we go out to buy a TV, we're not looking at a scientific or a technical explanation of what an IPS panel is. What's more important to each and every one of us is what exactly will it do to my viewing experience? I'm going to get to that. But before that, let's also try to understand how are VA panels different to these IPS panels. Now, about VA panels, just as the name suggests, vertically aligned panels. Now, that's what VA stands for, vertically aligned. You remember I gave you the example of these liquid crystals in the horizontal position when it comes to an IPS panel. Now, the main difference between an IPS and a VA panel, just as the name suggests, vertically aligned, not horizontal, vertically aligned. When there is no charge and when there is a charge that passes through them, it changes position. So that is the main difference between a VA panel and an IPS panel from the technical perspective in short. Now, of course, this is not a very scientific explanation. It is also not a very lengthy explanation. But like I told you at the start of the video, what I did want to talk about or delve on is not exactly the scientific or the technical explanation of an IPS panel or a VA panel, but what experiences do each of these panel types bring? That's what I'm going to focus on throughout the rest of the video. So let's get into it. Alrighty, now just to be fair, I've got my Samsung Crystal AU9070 on this side, which happens to be a VA panel. And on this side, I have my Hisense U7H, which is an IPS panel, but it also has a full array local dimming panel. So it's a fold display. Now I'm going to play the same content on both these TVs. And then I'm going to get into what are the differences when it comes to the color reproduction, the overall picture performance as far as these two panel types go. So let's hit that button and let's take a look at how are these two panel types different. A VA panel, it has more contrast ratios. So the contrast ratios are always going to be better on a VA panel. Now an IPS panel, what you would notice is this is a fold panel, so the contrast ratios are still really good, by the way. But if it's not a fold panel, because of that IPS glow, the contrast ratios are never going to be as good as a VA panel. So that's the first biggest difference. The contrast ratios are always going to be better on a VA panel compared to an IPS panel. So if you're into movies, if you like to watch a lot of cinema, then I personally believe that a VA panel would comparatively be better because the contrast ratios are better. And what that also leads to is that the blacks are comparatively better on a VA panel as opposed to an IPS panel. So if you want a cinematic experience, which is really, really good, I think I would probably lean more towards a VA panel than an IPS panel, but it depends on the type of an IPS panel as well, because here, in this case, I've got a foiled IPS panel. And when you have a foiled IPS panel, this panel really has good contrast ratio. So despite of having only, let's say, 2000:1 contrast ratio, as opposed to, let's say, 5000 or 4000 or even 6000:1, I don't even remember what the contrast ratio on my Samsung TV was, but I think it would probably be between 4000 to 5000:1 versus the 2000:1 contrast ratio. Now, because of the fact that this is a foiled panel, which is full array local dimming panel, the contrast ratios are not that bad when I'm personally viewing it. Please note that the camera will never be able to do justice because both TVs, they're very different when it comes to their peak brightness or their typical brightness. But I'm sharing my personal experience in this video, and that's why, I'm making this video in the first place, because without my personal experience, you would just be taking a look at two screens. Now, so that's the first and the second difference, which is the contrast ratio and the blacks. So the blacks are better, the contrast ratios are better on a VA panel, but on an IPS panel, what's better then? Okay, we're going to get to that in our next section. What's really good on an IPS panel is the viewing angle. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take my camera and I'm going to move it around. And I'm going to shift a little bit just to show you how the colors basically shift when I shift or move the camera around. So if I come and take a look at the viewing angle from this particular side, I know the camera could be a little shaky. I apologize for that. Now, what you would notice is that the VA panel, there is a significant amount of color shift and the colors no longer look as good as an IPS panel. Now, on the IPS panel, it's hardly changed. It's still the same color reproduction and color tones, even from this angle. Even if I move over to an extreme angle like this, now I see more shift on a VA panel. So what do I want to convey here? Now, what I want to convey, let me put my camera back and I'm going to get to that. What I want to convey here is the fact that if you're out in the market to get a TV which has better viewing angles, then there's no doubt in my mind that an IPS panel will do a far better job of giving you the better viewing angles. Now, in terms of a VA panel, it depends. For instance, this is not a QLED. What I've also noticed personally is VA panels with a quantum dot layer, their viewing angles are not as bad, because I checked out the Samsung Frame TV as well. For instance, surprisingly, despite being a matte panel, the colors do shift. Yeah, I don't deny that, but it's not as bad as my Samsung AU9070. It could be because of the fact that it's actually a QLED. Now here, this is a QLED, by the way. It's not a fair comparison because I don't have a VA QLED with me. So I'm making this comparison between a standard LED versus a QLED. So what I've noticed is in a QLED with a VA panel, the viewing angles are comparatively better than a standard LED. So if you are looking at buying a VA panel, then I suppose that a VA QLED would be comparatively better, but it's still not going to be as good as an IPS panel straight off the bat. So irrespective of whether it's a standard LED or it's a QLED or a mini LED, if it's an IPS panel, it's going to give you great viewing angles. Now, why is this important? Now, this is important because, hey, if you're buying a big screen TV, obviously you're not going to watch it alone. If it's a 65-inch TV or a 75-inch TV, I personally believe, now this is just my personal opinion, of course, personal opinions may vary, but if I'm buying a very big screen TV, then I'm going to keep it in my living area as an example, and I'm going to watch it with my family members. And obviously, not every family member of mine will be sitting in a straight line, or they're not going to sit on my lap. They're going to sit on this side, they're going to sit on the other side. And if there is a viewing angle which comes because of that seating arrangement, then it's important that you choose an IPS panel, because their viewing experience will definitely get hampered. You see how the colors shifted when I moved from one viewing angle to the other. Now, a VA panel is most suitable for those viewers who are watching their content from straight across the television. So, I mean, there's, you could say, sitting right in front of the TV in a straight line, and then they're watching their content. So for those viewers, a VA panel is absolutely perfect. It is going to give you that better cinematic experience, because I'm just going to play these videos again, and I'm going to show you what exactly do I mean. Let me play this for 55 seconds, and yeah. So let's get back to this video. And while this video plays on, it's not a very long video, I'm going to share my experiences. Now, as far as color reproduction goes, an IPS panel, in my personal opinion, has given me the better colors here. I think the colors are more natural. The colors are more vibrant. They pop out a lot more, but the blacks are definitely not as good as the VA panel. So the VA panel offers better contrast ratios, better blacks, but in terms of popping colors, I think the IPS does the better job here. Now, this depends on TV manufacturers and how they color grade their TV, or how they have optimized their television sets as well. Now, I'm doing this comparison between the Samsung AU9070 and my Hisense U7H just for your reference, so that you get a context as to where I'm coming from. Now, of course, an IPS panel will have the better colors to work with, even if you want to use it as a computer monitor. So I have connected this to my PC, and this content is not running through the PC, by the way. I wanted to run the content through the native TV OS. So I'm running it through the Tizen TV OS on that one and the Vida TV OS on this one. But what I want to say is that the colors definitely, I mean, when I'm looking at it from a distance here of say about 4 feet or 5 feet, the colors really look great on my Hisense U7H, probably because of how they've graded the TV. But I am also looking at it from an angle, and now when I look at it from an angle, of course, there's no doubt that the IPS panel is so much better. Now, what about gaming? Which one's better for gaming, VA or IPS? Now, this completely depends on what, again, you like more. For instance, IPS panels, well, it's definitely got the more accurate, calibrated colors, and it may even have the more faster response times based on the TV that you're buying. Now, this TV, I think it has an 8 millisecond response time, so it's pretty respectable. My Samsung, I've forgotten now what the response times were, but it was less than 10 milliseconds. So both the TVs are great in terms of the response times, but I think in general, IPS panels tend to be the better one in terms of the response times. But the HDR performance, the blacks, the contrast ratios are comparatively better on a VA panel. However, what I've noticed is there could be some artifacting, some ghosting in terms of gaming when it comes to a VA panel compared to an IPS panel. So you have to really look at each of the TV manufacturer and see who have color graded their televisions, optimized their televisions, or put in more gaming related features in their televisions before buying a TV and before choosing a panel type for your gaming. Now, these days, a VA and IPS panel, in terms of the response times, in terms of ghosting or artifacting, they have actually come pretty close. And surprisingly, what I would also like to mention is, gone are the days when IPS panels used to look really washed up in terms of the contrast ratios compared to a VA panel when you view them side by side. I personally believe that IPS panels have come a long way when it comes to the contrast ratios. I have literally seen the improvement in the television models in the last 2 to 3 years. There has been a significant improvement in IPS panels and the type of contrast ratios that they offer. One very small example that I would like to give from the budget category of TVs is the LG UQ or UR series. So if you would have seen any of these LG TVs from the UQ or the UR series, they have made significant improvements in terms of the contrast ratios year on year in their TVs, their entry-level TVs, that too. So I think it again depends on what you personally want. So like I said, an IPS panel may in general have the faster response times. They may have better performance when it comes to artifacting or ghosting, but the HDR performance, the blacks and the contrast ratios are always going to be better on a VA panel. So choose your television panel type according to what you prioritize more. So I'm afraid I don't have a conclusive answer for you folks. I'm sorry, I apologize, but it is what it is. It's not a question of which panel type is better, an IPS or a VA panel. The main question that you need to ask yourself is, what are your requirements? What do you prioritize more? So what are the important points that we went through in this video? Number one, the contrast ratio and the blacks. VA panels, they're definitely better. Number three, viewing angles. The IPS panels, definitely better. The response time in games, in general, I'm saying, now this may vary from model to model, but in general, IPS panels tend to be better. And the color reproduction, also the colors pop a lot more on the IPS panel, but IPS panels also suffer from what we usually call an IPS glow. Now on fault panels, this somehow gets fixed in a way, not completely, but in a standard LED, not a QLED or not a fault panel, I think you would clearly be able to see that IPS glow and the blacks become a little more grayish. So again, it boils down to what you need and what your requirements are. So choose your panel type accordingly moving into 2024. And if you agree with me on these points, if you disagree with me on these points, please let me know in the comment section and we can have a very healthy discussion on my personal experiences furthermore. And plus, you can share yours as well in the comment section. Now, with that said, let's finally head over to the outro. Okay, folks, so we've come to the end of this video. But before we finally end the video, I would again like to request you lovely people, if you could just hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already done that. And also that bell icon in case you want to get notified with all my latest videos. I do put out videos in both English and also in Hindi, which is the national language of India. I'm proud to put out content in Hindi because I want to reach out to as many people as possible in India as well. But hey, if you want to check out any English content, TV related, tech related, gaming, or music related, then you can just scroll through my video list on my channel and you will easily find out all the videos that I have in English. Now, with that said, again, guys, if you could just hit that like and subscribe button and also that bell icon in case you want to get notified with all my latest videos, it does help with the YouTube algorithm. It does help my channel grow and it would really mean a lot to me and encourage me to make more such videos in both Hindi and English. But it's a wrap for this one. And before I go, if you have any questions or if you think that I've left out anything as far as VA or IPS panels go, please reach out to me via the comment section. Hit me up in the comment section and I'll come back to you as soon as I can. With that said, I'll see you lovely folks in my next video. Until that time, I'll say take care, stay safe, and may God bless you all.